I'm feeling a change coming. I'm feeling a change coming. Right here, I'm feeling a change. I'm feeling a change all around me. No doubt, I'm feeling a change. I'm feeling a change running down me. Now, there's change coming. Now, there's change coming. There's change coming. There's change coming.
Welcome to Eagle Brook Church. We are so glad that you're here, whether you're joining us in person or watching online. We've been in a sermon series called Way of the Wise, where we've been looking at pieces of wisdom from a book in the Bible called Proverbs. Now, let's say you're here today, you're not a church person, you're not a Bible person, perhaps you lost a bet to your Christian friend and you're here. Welcome, super glad you're here. But even if you're not really into the Bible, I think a person, anybody, can really get into Proverbs because of the guy who wrote it. His name is Solomon. There's a couple of reasons why you want advice from Solomon. Economists today estimate that Solomon's net worth in today's society is $2.1 trillion. That's trillion with a T, okay? If you look up the richest people in human history, you're gonna see Solomon on the list every single time, okay? You think Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, like they feel poor around Solomon, okay? Like they're like this is the guy that they would be taking advice from. So outside of the Bible, history books would tell you Solomon has a story that's worth paying attention to. Inside Scripture, we learn that Solomon is considered to be one of the wisest men to ever live. So based off of Solomon's tremendous success and experience, we get the book of Proverbs. The way I like to look at the book of Proverbs is a trillionaire's tweets, okay? Most of them are under 140 characters. So if Solomon had Twitter, it would be Proverbs. And so Jason kicked off the series a couple of weeks ago. He challenged all of us to read through the book of Proverbs together as a church. In my house, we like to say a proverb a day keeps the doctor away. And the first piece of wisdom that he taught on was guarding our heart. Then we looked at how there's wisdom in developing discipline. And then we looked at what it means to really trust God. Today's piece of wisdom that I want to spend some time speaking on is listening to advice. Listening to advice. I love what Proverbs 19 verse 20 says. It says, listen to advice and accept discipline. And at the end, you will be counted among the wise. This is my hope and prayer for every single person here today, is that when we look at our life and at the end of it, well, people would count us among the wise. Have you ever met a know-it-all? I mean, they're a guru on everything. Some of you just looked at one another like, yeah, you, okay? Like they're a finance know-it-all. They know, they just crypto know-it-all, okay? They're a relationship know-it-all. They've been on like 30 dates in the last year, but they're a know-it-all. It's like, yeah, clearly you know a lot. And then they're a home repair know-it-all. You got to find the studs, man. You got to move some stuff around. They're a political know-it-all. They're a sports know-it-all. They're a parenting know-it-all. You ever have that Dr. Phil friend that can tell you what you need to be doing with your kids, but they kids crazy? You know, it's like you're like, buddy, what, you ever practice what you preach at home? And so, but we all have these people in our life that are like, you know, they're know-it-alls. It's funny, in March of 2020, we all have at least one friend or family member who tried to convince us that they were a pandemic know-it-all, okay? No, they weren't. None of us were. You want to know why? Because all of us geniuses had a wonderful 2-week plan for a 2-year global pandemic, okay? So that shows you exactly what we know, okay? I think part of our challenge in listening to advice from other people is it can make us feel like we're not in control. It can make us feel like there's something that we don't know. It can make us feel like people are going to think less of us if we look like we need advice. So today what I want to do is I want to give you 4 things wise people do really well to accept advice. And here's the first one. Wise people, they foster curiosity. They're not trying to pretend that they know it all. They see the world around them as a place in which they can consistently learn something new. They're not walking into rooms going, yeah, I know where everyone is. I know everything. No, they're walking in a room, they're going, I'm curious. I'm curious about them. This is somebody that I could learn from. I love what Proverbs 18:2 says. It says, fools find no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing their own opinions. They delight in airing their own opinions. Airing is a Hebrew word for posting, okay? Like they like posting their own opinions, okay? Like if anytime you're trying to figure out what to do, what our trillionaire friend Solomon would tell us is anytime you see the word fools in Proverbs, do the opposite of whatever it says after it, okay? Like that's a rule of thumb. If you're trying to figure out how to have a great life, find the word fools in Proverbs and do exactly the opposite. And so what he tells us is he's going, fools, they find no pleasure in understanding, which would mean for us, we should find pleasure in understanding. We should look for, we're trying to gain understanding. It's always going to be difficult to receive advice from other people if we believe we're the ones that should always be giving it. Like if we're the ones going, you actually should be learning from me right now. Like this can be our attitude in our everyday life. And one of the most powerful phrases I've gotten so comfortable with over the past couple of years is one that I used to be afraid of. And I think it's one that we're often afraid of. And it's simply this. I don't know. I don't know. People ask me a lot of questions. And I'm tempted specifically to be a Bible know-it-all. I wish that was the case. But it's not. Like a lot of times, I don't know. I mean, I read it a lot. I read the Bible a lot. I'm not gonna lie, I do. I study it a lot, I do. But even then, not even close to a Bible know-it-all. And people love to ask me questions about one particular book, Revelation. To which I'd be like, I don't know. Brian, we living in the end times? I thought we were living in the end times in the 90s, but here we are, I don't know. Pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib. I don't know. I really don't know. People ask me parenting advice all the time. I have a 7 and a 3-year-old, okay? You want parenting advice? Go ask Jason. He got like 100 kids, okay? I don't know. I'm figuring stuff out every day. Don't ask me. I don't know. I pray for him and stuff, but like, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. We'll find out. Call me in 20 years. I'll tell you. I mean, why are we so afraid to use it? Because I think this phrase is extremely difficult for educated people to use. People that have dedicated a large portion of their life to getting a degree on the wall, and especially when you got a couple of them, definitely afraid to say, well, I don't know. This phrase is especially difficult for leaders to use, especially when people expect you to have answers and vision and guidance, and all of a sudden you're just going, I don't know. This phrase is difficult for anyone who has ever been associated with success. When people count on you to know a lot, it can be very, very difficult to be honest and raise our hand and say, yeah, I actually don't know. But when you don't actually know and can admit it, you wanna know what that is? It's good for us. It's good for us. It's admitting our humanity to other people. You know what it does? It actually humbles us. And that's something we desperately need. Solomon, he said it best. And when he said this, he said, pride goes before a fall, right? Except this actually isn't what Proverbs 16:18 says. It actually does not say pride goes before a fall. This is what it says. It says pride goes before destruction. A haughty spirit before a fall. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish pride came before a fall. I do, because that wouldn't be that bad. I mean, pride comes before destruction. Destruction is way worse than a fall. Let me just show you this, okay? Look at this video, okay? This is people that are just falling, okay? Like this, it's like, oh, pride, whoops. That's what happens with a little pride, you know? Just, wow, you know? Like, these are just people that are just, they're slipping, they're falling, poor gal, wow. Now, I love what's happening right now. This is so fun for me. Now, let's see a video of destruction. Now, here's what's interesting. When people were falling, we were laughing. We were oohing, we were ahhing. Now, nobody's laughing. Now, we're going, wait, whoa. This is what happens when pride enters into our life. This is what our trillionaire would tell us. He goes, hey, I'm telling you, pride comes before this. If you were getting ready to go on vacation, and I told you that where you were headed, there would be something there that could cause you to slip and fall. You might say, Ryan, relax. I'm a Minnesotan. A little ice doesn't faze me, okay? Take my chances on a little bit of ice. But if I told you at your destination, there would be something that would absolutely destroy the entire place, you wouldn't get on the plane. You'd never go there. Ladies and gentlemen, that's pride. It's a place you don't want to go. It will ruin everything you hold dear. We want to be the type of people who are humble enough to listen and accept advice from other people. We don't want to be people who are consistently stuck in our own ways and refuse to listen to sound advice. When wise people walk in the room, they make very little assumptions and they remain curious about what they can learn from other people. The second thing that wise people do really well to accept advice is what wise people, they welcome input. They're going, hey, I need some input. I love what Proverbs 16:20 says. It says, whoever gives heed to instruction prospers, and blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord. Whoever gives heed to instruction. What wise people do really well is before they make plans or decisions, they welcome input. They take heed to instructions. Have you ever had your kids open a new toy that required you to put it together? Or you ordered a new piece of furniture and you are the ones that have to put it together, it came in a box, you know? And in that moment, we all have something to pray about. In that moment, we all have a decision to make. We can either humble ourselves and do what? Follow the instructions. Or we can play the I don't need no instructions to put IKEA furniture or a toy together game. I'm an adult. How hard could it be? And we've all had this moment, right? I love when I don't use the instructions to build something and an hour goes by and all of a sudden I hear my wife from the other room say, hey, how's it going over there? It's going fine, okay? Don't worry about me. Everything's fine, okay? Just making sure it's sturdy. She's like, okay, dinner's coming. You know, it's been a while. You know, it's like you have this moment of, well, what? Pride. And you're just sitting there thinking, should have just followed the instructions. Because that's what wise people do. Wise people aren't looking for the hard way of doing things or the more impressive way of doing things. They wake up and think, if there's information available to help me today, I welcome it into my life. Every time that I write a message at Eagle Brook, there's a group of people I send the message to get input. Why? Well, because it's wise to get input and perspective on a message that will be heard by thousands of people. So before you hop on the stage and just start saying stuff, it'd probably be a good idea if somebody knew about it. You know, it's called checks and balances. It's called accountability. I used to get input from staff members after a message, but at that point, it's too late. You already said it, okay? So you already done offended people. You done already said what you had to say. It's like, it's too late. One time, I was preaching on forgiveness, which is actually one of my favorite subjects. I love talking about forgiveness. And I was debriefing it with a staff member. He said, hey, can I give you some feedback on today's message? And I had a couple more services to do. And I said, sure. And he said, Ryan, your message today, he said, man, it was good. He goes, but it might have been too good. He said, you made forgiveness sound easy. He said, I don't know how to say this to you, Ryan, but he goes, I think you might have smiled too much in a forgiveness message. And then he began to share with me what he had to forgive someone for. And trust me, it was anything but easy. He just said, man, I don't know how to, it's not what you said. He goes, it's hard. And it's hard for a lot of people. And he goes, I know you've forgiven some people. He goes, but man, if you maybe just slow down or it helped me. His perspective, his story, his experience, and his input changed how I delivered a message. Now, on the other hand, I could look at other staff members and say, who are you to tell me what I should or shouldn't say? You wanna know what that would be called? Foolishness. That's what that would be called. I mean, so any of us can walk around and go, who are you, who are you, who are you, who are you? Do you know how much success I have? Do you know where I've spoken? Do you know what I've done? Do you know how many degrees I have? Do you know? That's called foolishness. Because if you're here today, you have a job, and you think your boss doesn't know what they're talking about, ever. Maybe you roll your eyes every time they talk. Every time they lead a meeting, every time they send an email, you're thinking, well, dude, I can do your job better than you can. Are you sure? The pressure alone might crush you. Are you sure? I mean, I just think it's better for us to just go to work with the mindset that goes, man, you know what? Maybe they're in this position for a reason. And maybe they've got more on their plate than I can really even see. So my posture should be one that says, you know what? I'm gonna welcome input from them. I mean, it's the same thing with our parents. I mean, growing up, I always thought my parents had no idea what they were talking about. I was like, they're clueless. I don't even know how I ended up in your household. You don't know what you're talking about. I just don't understand. And I thought my parents had no idea what they were talking about until I became a parent. Now I'm like, Mom, I apologize to my mom once a week. Mom, I'm sorry. My bad. My bad, Mom. My bad. I get it now. I'm sorry. I know. I'm sorry. The older I get, the more I look back on my parents' advice and I just think, you were right. So I just want to talk to teenagers for a minute, okay? Parents, I got you for about 30 seconds, okay? Here's the deal. Teenagers, you may find yourself in a position where tensions are high between you and your parents. And in that moment, you might be tempted to believe it's you versus them. You can actually believe that your parents are against you because they don't want to let you do whatever you want to do. But allow me to just speak on behalf of your parents for a moment. They want you to win. In fact, there's no one in your life that's cheering for you more than they are. I know you like your friends, and I get it. I promise you, you don't have a bigger fan in the world than your parents. You're not gonna find it. And if they're giving you advice that really frustrates you, they're not trying to keep you from having fun. They're trying to keep you from having heartache. In some cases, they're trying to keep you out of jail. Just want you to think about that for a minute. They're on your side. So if you want to be counted among the wise, Take heed to instructions. Welcome input. Look for it, which leads us to number 3. And this is important. Wise people. Well, they spend time with other wise people. Wise people hang out with other wise people. I love what Proverbs 15, verse 22 says. It says, plans fail for the lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. So a wise person has a mind that's willing to learn. They foster curiosity. Not only are they willing to learn, they're looking for instructions. They're taking heed to instructions. They're welcoming it into their life. But not only that, wise people, well, they spend time with other wise people. Bless you. Way too many people make way too many decisions by themselves. They make way too many decisions by themselves. Life is one set of decisions after another set of decisions. And the sets of decisions seem to never end. When you're a teenager, it's who do I hang out with? Who do I hang out with? Who are my friends? Who are my friends? What am I good at? What am I good at? Okay, what college am I gonna go to? And trying to make that decision. Then in your 20s, you graduate, you're like, all right, where do I work? Where do I live? Who do I date? When do we get married? And all of a sudden in your 30s, you're married. You're like, oh man, should we have kids? Wait, you're pregnant? How'd you get pregnant? When did that happen? I thought we were praying about it. Well, while you were praying, you were acting married. Now, bam, now you got 4 kids. Where'd they come from? We know where they came from. Now that you got kids, now you got a new set of decisions. Now you're trying to figure out, all right, do I stay at home with the newborn? Do we put him in daycare? Health challenges, baby formula, goat milk. Okay, do we send them to public school? Do we send them to private school? You grew up private school, you grew up public school, and then you have a fight on them. We try it for middle school, then we send them to a public school and high school. Okay, go back to work, start a business working from home, change jobs, join your buddy's startup. You find out it's a Ponzi scheme. Now I gotta go back and get my other job. Wait, now your kids are grown. Wait, did you save for their college? Nobody saved for yours, I'm not saving for yours, okay? So forget that. Now they're making bad decisions, similar to the ones you made. Anybody else got any anxiety right now just thinking about all these decisions? You're like, man, Ryan, I haven't even thought about all these decisions. Here's the deal. In light of all the decisions that we have to make in every season of our life, who here among us would say, I don't need any counsel? I don't need many advisors. Guess what? 99% of us are in the midst of making some sort of decision right now. And I wonder how many of us are making those decisions alone. It's not wise. The verse we just read says, many advisors. Many. And this is why I think small groups are so important. Why? Because it puts you in a room with like-minded believers who want you to win. How many decisions have you made where you just consulted no one? You just did it. And the results and destination are ones that are tough to live with. Do you want to know what breaks my heart? The common denominator of people that I sit with who are dealing with the ramifications of bad decisions they made. What breaks my heart is that they find themselves in one of 2 categories. The first category is they find themselves in the category, no advisors. They have nobody. They're just living life's multiple choice, and they're guessing every single time with no teacher and no guidance, not one advisor. The second group that breaks my heart is, well, bad advisors. They're with the wrong crowd. They steer them in the wrong direction. Yeah, date them. It's a great idea. I don't know. Yeah, get that loan. Your job ain't that good. I don't know. Yeah. After you spend $5,000 on that credit card, they'll give you a free flight. Well, the flight would be a lot cheaper than $5,000. I guarantee you that, unless you're going to Paris, okay? Like 2% points on travel purchases. Okay, here's the deal. People can give you all this financial advice, and it's like, man, that's great. Man, credit cards, points, I get it. It's great if you own a business, but not if you're a college student thinking that you can pay off student loans with credit card rewards. That's not how it works. But people will get this advice and have so much debt starting off their marriage that that's what they spend their entire marriage trying to get out of. What we're looking for, ladies and gentlemen, is we're looking for godly advisors, as many as we possibly can find, who have a good track record that can help us make decisions about our life. Now, This last piece of wisdom, wise people do really well when listening to advice is probably the most important, because it's this: wise people put into practice what they've learned. Because what's the point of getting all this advice if you don't listen? You ever had someone ask you for advice and they do the exact opposite of what you told them to do? I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we all know people who are smart with a high GPA. It's called intellect. Yet people can be really smart and make really dumb decisions. It's not wisdom until you've put it into practice. Unpracticed wisdom is just knowledge. You can have all the wise instructions in the world, but if you don't practice it, it's worthless. One of the saddest stories that I've found in Scripture is found in 1 Kings. It's the story of Solomon and his son, and it says this in chapter 11. It says, Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel 40 years. Then he rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David, his father. And Rehoboam, his son, succeeded him as king. If there's somebody you don't want to follow, it's your daddy, who was the wisest man to ever live. Okay, like those are some really, really big shoes to fill. Nevertheless, many people believe that the book of Proverbs was written specifically for Rehoboam. This is Solomon leaving a playbook for his son. You'll see that throughout Proverbs. My son, listen to my wisdom, my son. And so what we get in 1 Kings chapter 12 is a picture of Rehoboam's first week on the job. And during his inauguration, the whole assembly of Israel, they come to him and they say, hey, here's the deal. Hey, we served your dad, but man, he put a lot of a heavy tax on us. It was a lot of labor. If you could you just lighten the load? And if you do that, we'll serve you, we'll follow you. And then the scripture tells us that Rehoboam does something very wise. He answered, hey, go away for 3 days and then come back to me. He goes, hey, I need some time, which is really good when you're making a big decision. So the people went away. Then King Rehoboam consulted the elders who had served his father Solomon during his lifetime. How would you advise me to answer these people, he asked. They replied, if today you will be a servant to these people and serve them and give them a favorable answer, they will always be your servants. Their advice, be a servant leader. Their advice was, hey, if you want them to follow you and serve you, why don't you start by serving them? And here's where the story gets sad. But Rehoboam rejected the advice the elders gave him and consulted the young men who had grown up with him and were serving him. He asked them, what is your advice? How should we answer these people who say to me, lighten the yoke your father put on us? The young man who had grown up with him replied, these people have said to you, your father put a heavy yoke on us, but make our yoke lighter. Well, now tell them my little finger is thicker than my father's waist, which makes no sense, ladies and gentlemen. My father laid on you a heavy yoke. I will make it even heavier. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions. Great advice, young men. Here's a young man who's been given a leadership opportunity and has also been handed a leadership playbook. And yet he's taking advice from his middle school buddies. He's not expected to be his dad, but let's just put this in perspective for just a moment. I want you to think about this. The wisest man to ever live still had elders he sought counsel from. Just think about that for a minute. So even if you're like, Ryan, I'm really smart, I really don't need this message. Are you sure? Like, I got this. Are you sure? Because Solomon's going, I left you elders. I don't expect you to be me, but I did leave you some help. He had access to some of the best advice in the world, except he goes to his middle school buddies. And to make a long story short, their plan obviously didn't work. And Rehoboam's kingdom ends up being handed to someone else. It's interesting to me that sometimes God will lay out a plethora of wisdom for us through his word, his people, and his church. And sometimes our response is, yeah, those are nice suggestions. I'll take it into consideration when making decisions about my life. But at the end of the day, I'm just gonna do whatever I want. So then we do whatever we want, and we get the results of doing our own thing, and then get mad at God for not making it awesome. But you can't get frustrated with the results you got from not listening to the advice that was made readily available to you. I mean, I see this the most when it comes to making good relationship decisions. Someone says, I'm thinking about dating this person, and they've got some family and some friends that simply say, hey, I see some red flags. But the person doesn't see red flags. You wanna know what they see? They see that they're in love. I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. They're infatuated with this person, so they'll either ignore the red flags or can't see them at all because the alternative is loneliness, which sounds like purgatory to them. So they're just like, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. And then they get engaged and want to get married pretty quick, and then many advisors will say, hey, I think you should slow down and do premarital counseling before you jump into a marriage. And then they find themselves year one of a marriage, and they'll sometimes use this statement. They'll say, I wish somebody would have told me. And we're going, we've all seen this movie. We tried to tell you. And at some point, you and I have to wonder, right now, is there anything people in your life have been trying to tell you that you've been ignoring? Are you sure you're not in the movie? And there's two sides to this. You could be the couple in the movie, you could be the couple giving advice to the ones in the movie. And I realize that there's a lot of people that have found themselves in a place where they're going, man, I wish I had listened to some old advice, but now I'm here. And you've got a reality today. You've got results of decisions that you've made, good or bad. But I want you to know today that regardless of where you find yourself in life, there's always hope. Today is always a great opportunity to start making better decisions. And so if there's somebody in your life that's giving you some sound advice, today's a great opportunity to start putting it into practice. Drugs will ruin your life. Alcohol could ruin your family. Ignoring red flags with someone you're dating could take up years of your life and leave you with a broken heart. Not saving for your future is costing you your future. You can't keep leading by intimidation and expecting people to continue to want to work here. Just because they're inviting you to hang out doesn't make them a good friend. There's just these moments in life where someone gives us advice that's tough to hear, but great to live out. And in those moments, I think we have an opportunity where we could either be offended or we could lean in. The people that are trying to give you advice, they're trying to help you, not hurt you. I had a physical, kind of a yearly health check that I do, and they invited a dietitian to be a part of it just to look at my diet. And so what they had me do is they said, hey, we want you to write down what you've eaten over the past 3 days, okay? Every single day, everything that you've eaten for 3 days. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna be honest, okay? I'm not gonna lie to this doctor. And so I write down everything that I had eaten over the past 3 days, and the dietitian, she looks at me and she goes, so, do you think this is healthy? I said, ma'am, with all due respect, I am not here to convince you that I'm eating healthy. You are here to tell me if you think this is healthy. I see pizza on day 2, I'm not sure, but you tell me because you're the dietitian. I am not, okay? So I am here for you to give me advice, not trying to convince you that the way that I'm living is already awesome. Okay, that's not why we're here. So you're the expert. You tell me what I should be doing differently. And if we are going to find ourselves in the room with people that can give us sound advice relationally, financially, or even for our own health, what's the point of being in the room if we're not gonna practice it? What's the point of reading all these books and listening to all these podcasts and pulling up all of these articles if we're not going to apply it? You know, sometimes I would get in this rat race of going, oh, I gotta read like 50 books a year. It's like, well, what do you win for reading 50 books? Like, you get a ribbon in a book club? Like, when are you gonna apply some of this stuff? On some level, it's if we're gonna get wisdom, it's not wisdom until we've actually practiced it. So, in the event that you're here today, or you're watching online, and you find yourself in that category of people who have made some bad decisions as a result of ignoring some good advice, it's really good news for you today. It's never too late. It's never too late to start making better decisions. You might not have gone to premarital counseling, but I've heard postmarital counseling works just as good. So you might think, oh, we didn't do it right. Well, you can start doing it right now. So don't feel like the relationship is too gone or you've just made too many bad decisions. You'd be surprised what God can restore. You'd be surprised what God can redeem when you surrender your decisions to him. So in summary, wise people, what do? They foster curiosity. They walk in rooms going, I'm not assuming that I know a bunch of stuff about you. I'm actually, you're someone that I can learn from. Wise people, they welcome input. They're looking for. Wise people, well, they spend time with other wise people. And lastly, wise people, they put into practice what they've learned. I hope and pray for each and every person watching or listening to this message is that whatever wisdom you've received throughout your life, that you begin to put it into practice. And at the end of your life, my prayer is that you would be counted among the wise. God, I thank you so much for Eagle Brook Church. I pray, God, that you would give us the ability to walk this message out. Lord, if you put us in a room, put us in a Zoom full of wisdom, I pray, God, that the posture of our life would be that we're taking copious notes. And that we're not just taking notes, but we would take those notes and copy and paste them into the way that we live. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Join us next week as we conclude Way of the Wise. Have a fantastic week.